Hey, Dr. Clark here, and in this video we're going to learn about an introduction to loans. Let's get started. So there's three main ideas in this section. We've got what is a loan, what does it mean to capitalize interest, and then what is an amortization table. So let's start with a loan. So a loan is when one entity lends money to another entity, and typically the borrower pays back the original amount plus a certain amount of interest. Usually one entity is like a bank and the other entity is an individual. You know, you're buying a house, the bank loans you a certain amount of money, and then you buy that house. Now you own the house, but you owe the bank money, and you know, you pay them a certain amount of money each month, but there's an interest accumulating, and so you're sort of paying off the interest and the loan as well, and that's how the bank makes money. But it doesn't have to be a bank and an individual. It could be the government to an individual, or the government to a company, or a bank to a company. There's lots of different ways that money can be loaned. It could be your parents to you, or something like that. Student loans, sometimes it's the government to you. So there's lots of ways that loans can happen. And then the principal loan is just the amount that the borrower owes the lender at a given time. So initially the principal is how much money was lent, but over time as you pay back the loan, the principal goes down, and so you can think of the principal as the account balance at any given time. And there's a little bit of philosophical things to think about with loans. What is it? What are the ethical ramifications of giving loans? Is it right to loan money? Is it right to loan money with interest? And I think, over time, Christians have thought about that in different ways. There was the concept of usury in the medieval period, and whether that was right or wrong. But essentially, our whole modern culture, the ability to own a house was mainly possible because of loans and that kind of thing. So I think it's worth thinking about some of the ramifications of whether it's right or wrong, and how that works. Okay, so the next topic is capitalizing interest. So capitalizing interest on a loan occurs when no interest payment is made, and so the interest on the loan gets added to the loan balance. If you're the borrower, this is usually a bad thing because that means your loan balance is going up instead of down. Typically, when you make a payment, that payment first pays for the interest, and then whatever is left in the payment goes to the principal. There was a time when there was a lot of what were called interest-only loans that were given out, and so for the first 5 years you just paid the interest and you paid no principal, and after 5 years you hadn't paid down the principal at all, and this had some consequences. With the financial crisis in 2008, a lot of these interest-only loans were sort of assuming that property values would go up, but if they went down, then that became a problem for borrowers and that kind of thing. So, there's a lot of good topics to think about, not just what is the mathematics here, but, how do loans work. A situation where a borrower cannot pay back the loan, that's called defaulting on the loan. If the loan was such that there was capital, like if it was a home loan, then the bank just owns your home or your car or that kind of thing. It can be more complicated when what if it was a student loan? Well, how do you repossess your education or something? So the concept of defaulting is sort of simpler in some cases and more difficult in others. Sometimes, if you default on a loan and there isn't any capital, they could garnish your wages basically and say, like, you have to pay us back and this is how we're going to do it. So generally speaking, what everyone hopes for is that you're able to pay off the loan, and the bank hopes you're able to pay it off because then they're getting their interest money and that kind of thing. It's a lot less complicated that way. Finally, an amortization table. So amortization is the term used to describe how a debt is paid off with a fixed repayment schedule of equally sized payments. So you've got a $100,000 loan, the payments are $500 a month, and then over time the balance goes down until it's eventually zero. The amortization table shows how that works. It's got the balance, the interest accrued, how much is paid, and then the next month it has the new balance, interest, payment next month, etc. So it's similar like to a dynamic account chart, but it's called an amortization table when it's a loan. And the same key idea here is when we had a dynamic account chart, the sum of all the interest with the deposits was the total balance. Well, in this case, the sum of all the amortized, or the loan principal is equal to the loan plus the interest paid. The sum of all the payments equals the principal of the loan plus the interest paid. So if you think about that, let's say the loan was $5,000 and now the loan is $2,000. So you've paid off $3,000 in principal, but you also paid off, say, $500 in interest. Then you must have paid $3,500 in payments. So if you take how much payments were made in, the total of the payments has to be split into the principal and any interest paid, right? And that's an important idea if you want to figure out, well, what's the total interest paid on a loan? Or how long is it going to take to pay off this loan and that kind of thing? Well, the sum of all the payments made is equal to the principal of the loan plus the total interest paid. All right. So there's lots of interesting angles to look at loans from. We got to learn the mathematics as well. This is sort of the introduction, and we'll get more and more complicated as we go along. We want to think about the interest rates. There's always, an assumed interest rate, and obviously different lengths of time, different interest rates. There's lots of different ways that you can run a loan. So we'll tackle the exploration in class, and we'll see you there.